Hi, everyone. I beat Howard here, so I'm going to start talking. And I have to keep it to 30 to 60 seconds. So Howard, I'm going to take 30 to 60, and then you can take 30 to 60.
Okay.
So thank you for joining this room. I think a lot of people might want to jump off into other rooms too, but I'm Karen Fairchild. I'm a neonatologist. I'm super excited that bench researchers and clinical researchers are coming together, and cross-grounds collaborations is the key to getting UVA to preeminence. So I'm excited to be a part of this. Go ahead, Howard.
You have 20 more seconds. Are you yielding it? Yeah, I'll be quick. I'm Howard Goodkin. I am by training a systems neuroscientist who got lost in cell biology for a while and trying to move back towards my roots in developmental neuroscience. And very happy, I've always thought UVA was an amazing place if we could break down the silos, and I'm glad that we're finally getting there through this grand challenge. So happy to, kind of moderate this discussion and kind of bring everybody's ideas forward. Just reminder of any ideas that we generate today, I highly encourage you to put them at the wiki, because that's really in the end what's going to get people's attention at senior level leadership. So if we generate the thought today and it's your thought, I encourage you to post it. So the floor is open, and really the idea is to begin to generate thoughts about what would bring us to preeminence. What do we need to do? Where do we need to invest? What resources do we need to be able to be the premier site for a study of intellectual disabilities and human brain development?
And Howard, we have 16 people and we have a little more than 16 minutes. So should we call on people? Because we would love to hear everybody, and I don't want anybody to be shy. Do you want to raise hands, or do you want to be called on? Raise hands. Be called on. I'm going to start with Santina Zanelli, who's my colleague, and at the end of the alphabet, and then we'll go from there.
Thank you, Karen. I was voting for not being called on, but yeah, I think, this is really exciting. I think one of the major barriers we experience is with regards to bringing our team to the next level is really follow up and having the proper tools to assess the patients. We have great expertise in big data science and predictive monitoring, and emerging expertise with intervention in the NICU. I'm a neonatologist, by the way, so doing clinical research. But we have big roadblocks with support in the NICU, with research support, CRC specifically, and then we are failing to have tools that are used by other researchers in our follow-up assessments that then we can compare our data to other folks.
Thanks, Santina. I'm going to maybe keep it on the clinical side of the clinicians, because that's going to be clustered ideas, and then move over to the others, if that's okay. So Kate Frazier and Lisa Letskis are part of the NICU follow-up. Do you want to speak?
I can go. I'm Lisa Letskis. I am a developmental pediatric nurse practitioner. I'm also a junior investigator and an iThrive scholar. So my area of research is translational, and I focus on early identification and treatment of cerebral palsy. I think as a young investigator and a clinician, echoing the infrastructure, so building our teams with supportive staff, so data analysts, CRCs, and then also related to the NICU follow-up, developmental peds has been around, and we're a robust group. However, we don't make a lot of money, so we don't get a lot of extra money to really grow our programs that really support these long-term outcomes and other research projects across ground. So when people are putting forth research projects and it's a developmental outcome that needs to be done by our team, it's important to collaborate with our group moving forward. Also, as a young investigator, I think someone mentioned mentioned about breaking down silos. You know, when I have an idea, who do I go to? You know, I don't know what's going on in the psychology department. It would be great if we can form different teams or cores that young investigators can come and kind of present their ideas and get feedback from senior investigators and build those collaborations. Thank you.
So I'm Kate Frazier. I'm a developmental pediatrician, and I am the director of our NICU follow-up program. So my thing is kind of, as Lisa said, we have all of these babies that our neonatologists take wonderful care of, and we're keeping younger and younger gestational ages alive. And so there's so much information that we could gather from these babies long-term, but from a clinical perspective and even a research perspective, like we lack the space, we lack the expertise of specialty trained therapists, we lack any sort of coordination to help make sure that we're getting follow-up on these babies. And then we really do lack that kind of piece of being connected to the baby lab or connected to other work going on, looking at social emotional outcomes and learning readiness in these children. You know, we're doing all of this work to save these babies. And I'm interested in looking more at this piece as a emerging researcher, and just the lack of really needing more of like an outcomes core support to help there be data that we could actually follow and use for research.
All right, thank you. I'm going to move to some other people whose work I know a little bit more than some of the others in the group here, which is Megan Puglia and Jamie Morris. Do the two of you want to?
Sure, thank you. I'm Megan Puglia. I'm a human neuroscientist and focus on infant brain development and social outcomes currently. And I guess largely just echoing kind of what's been said, the ability to follow up on babies and try to get maybe like a more diverse sample. So a lot of the babies that I end up getting are faculty children or, affluent families that are able to come to the lab repeatedly. So I think it'd be wonderful to have some kind of like mobile testing site where we can have neuroscience technologies built into like a big van or truck and be able to go out into more rural areas of Virginia, get a more diverse sample, and also kind of echoing what Kevin had said about maybe having like a shared cohort. I feel like these babies and families are so valuable. So the more that we can collect on them and kind of capitalize on the time that we do have with them, the better. So yeah, the more out-equipped an outrig can be and go out and collect so many things. I see someone clapping, I love it. I think that would be so wonderful, and to be able to go out to them. I think a big barrier probably is, having to come to Charlottesville, and then, all the different things are kind of spread across ground. So if we could have a centralized testing site that can go to them, would be wonderful.
And a lab off the NICU, connected to the NICU.
Awesome. We could park it in the NICU. We could have one going out. We could just have a little fleet of mobile testing sites and they can go all over.
I can add to what Megan was saying, really just reiterate some of the same challenges. I'm Jamie Morris. I'm a cognitive neuroscientist. For years, I've been trying to unpack individual variability in cognitive and social skills, and more recently in cognitive and social development, using a variety of brain imaging and behavioral techniques. And we like to think on our side that we are doing pretty good work in terms of development of methods or application of methods that have come up in the field as the field has moved forward. And we're well positioned to do these things, to do the types of analyses that would support this. But what we never really have a good, we have the opposite problem that has been spelled out by the clinicians. We never really have a great way of thinking about outcomes, particularly if we end up with very limited samples where everyone's outcome is, going to be similar in some way, which is, good in a number of ways if we're talking about good outcomes. But it doesn't really tell us much about things like you said about learning, readiness for school. It doesn't tell us much about looking at kids at risk for learning disabilities or for developmental disorders. And we can't really make a lot of inroads into what are some of the early signs, or what are maybe some early targets that clinicians then would then be able to think about when they think about various intervention. So without that sort of partnership on a clinical aim, we can continue to build tools and continue to do analyses and continue to make theories, but we don't have a lot of ways of testing this in meaningful ways. So, more sort of support for bringing the two groups together, as mentioned here by Megan and the others in the clinical side, would allow for that, which would give a better picture and would actually take the limitations of each side and maybe erase them in some way. So I think that could be a good step forward.
Thanks, Jamie. I'll keep calling on people, or feel free to blurt out if you want. But given that Jamie just talked, I'm going to jump to you, Alev, and see if you wanted to contribute.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to add on the issue of the infrastructure. I'm a developmental neuroscientist, but more of a biological neuroscientist. But I want to vocalize some collective need that I've been hearing from my colleagues who are doing neuroimaging, and that is about the access to the research MRI and just breaking the barriers of access of the basic scientists, the use of the neuroimaging. It's a plot to need for increasing the infrastructure of imaging, and also making those infrastructure readily available to all developmental cognitive neuroscientists across grounds.
Agreed. Tanya, I think I saw you somewhere. Are you still here? Did you jump off? You jumped off. Jake?
Thanks, Howard. So first off, I look around this room and I'm humbled to be part of this group, just because being more on the clinical side of research and being a certified athletic trainer in the School of Education doing primarily concussion research, I'm proud to say that we're not only doing research to improve the lives of individuals when things go wrong, but also returning to life afterwards. But I'm also a product of your research as well, with our family and our son that has a developmental condition that we continually reap the benefits of the great research that's being done at UVA. So first off, thank you. And I'm excited to contribute to this conversation. One of the things that's a common thread throughout the other conversations that I've been a part of this last week is that underlying infrastructure and how to bring this all together, where we're not trying to be responsive to something rather like a RFA, et cetera, but so we can be the dreamer of the dreams. So having a think tank that brings this all together and learning more about the great work that you're doing, but also to be able to be ready when those calls come out and understand what we can contribute at a level that we currently don't know because of the silos that exist. And if Jadip was here, I would say that is a gift. I would give him a sledgehammer for the silos that he's tried to break down. But at the same time, here's an awesome opportunity where we can take more of a centric or a center-based approach in order to elevate what we're currently doing. So for example, I do sport concussion research. With that being said, we have basic scientists among us, clinical scientists, et cetera, that are not talking to one another. And I think that infrastructure, in order to identify common data elements, no matter where we are in a child's development, would be very advantageous for several different reasons, but that needs to be an ongoing conversation. And being in the other talks as well, recognizing people I am currently working with within data science, neuroimaging, biomechanics, engineering. I think those conversations need to be more widespread. So again, a lot of the topics that everyone has brought up thus far can really be realized and move forward. And we may need to bring in more mid to senior level leadership to make that happen, who can do the crosstalk in order to make the bridges, to build the bridges. And really, again, just to emphasize, my line of research is to make sure that whatever returning to life means for individuals that are in the NICU, the PICU, or even returning to sport or life after concussion, that we are prominent in this field, preeminent in this field, and a beacon not only to the Commonwealth of Virginia, not only nationally, but also globally.
Thanks, Jake. Kat, you're on the top of my screen.
Hi, I'm Kat Thrasher. I am a PhD candidate in the psychology department. I worked in the baby lab with Tobias Grossman for my master's, and I'm now working with Megan Puglia and Kevin Pelfrey for my dissertation. I study how infants and mothers regulate each other physiologically and emotionally, so more the typically developing group. And so many things I was thinking have already been said, but I just want to throw out there that increasing the diversity of our sample is something that would be fantastic. And the samples, Kevin has mentioned in the past, going up to Northern Virginia and sort of having a station up there. So I just wanted to put that back out there again. But the idea of having a mobile lab or unit or something that could be transported to meet our participants where they are, I think would be really valuable for starting a sort of longitudinal cohort type setup.
Casey?
Hi, everyone. I'm Casey Hoffman. I'm a weirdo compared to the rest of you. So I'm a microbiologist who is interested in the brain, specifically how the microbiome can impact the brain. And I get to work with a lot of really fantastic researchers here at UVA. So I serve as the program manager for the Trans-University Microbiome Initiative. And really, I'm here because we have started to build the infrastructure to handle biological specimens for investigators who are interested in looking at cytokines, the microbiome, metabolomics, things like that. And we'd really like to find a way to mesh with everybody else who's doing neurodevelopment research and brain research on grounds. So I'm just here to put in a ping for that and let everyone know that we're here. And if we could build infrastructure that made it easier to work with one another, that'd be really fantastic.
Thanks. So anybody else who I didn't call upon, whose camera may be off?
How about Emily?
Hi, I'm Emily Gray. I work for the Brain Institute, and I'm very excited about all of this discussion about cross collaboration and possible center and program project grants, because that's my role within the Brain Institute, is to help bring groups together and help get those applications moving. So I love that idea, and I'm here to help.
So thanks, Emily. So I've heard a lot of, if we were able to create this infrastructure or break down this barrier, but I haven't heard a lot kind of what research questions are out there. What would distinguish us? What's the overriding question here that people have that we think that we can do here at the University of Virginia that nobody else could do if we were to break down all these barriers that we just talked about?
All right, I'm going to start, Howard.
Yeah.
While everybody else thinks about their answer. We have I think we have 15 more minutes, so we should really open it up to more general discussions. But I think, Casey brought up the microbiome initiative, and the university has invested in microbiome and the university has invested in the brain in the past. So to me, it does make sense to marry those two initiatives and get people collaborating related to microbiome metabolome as it impacts brain development, both prenatally and postnatally. And one thing we haven't talked about is the whole prenatal clinical aspect, which is not strong at UVA. So that's something I think we need to strengthen moving forward, whether it's strategic hires at the high level or at the mid-level. I think we need more prenatal clinical research going on to match the prenatal bench research on the brain that's really, really elegant at UVA.
I guess I can build on that. Just thinking clinically, we mentioned we're saving these babies' lives now down to 23 weeks at times and 500 grammars. So we've done really well in the NICU related to medical management, but the outcomes are stagnant, related to cerebral palsy and other lifelong developmental impacts that affect patient level, family level, and community level. So we need to develop interventions that are translational that really move that benchmark.
And I would say, going off of that, of Lisa's point, you know, the big neurodevelopmental impairments, CP, hearing, vision, severe intellectual disability, you know, there's often lots of energy that go into that, especially now with more early detection of CP and then autism. But there's a lot of these other more prevalent, lower severity type things that affect children and then through their lifespan, like learning disabilities, ADHD, mental health issues, emotional regulation, that all start, we know, especially with baby lab work that's come out recently, that, you know, within those first few months of life. And so looking at how can we, I think that's an area of like, what biomarkers can we pick up on early on, even when they're still in the NICU, that may help us look at other outcomes besides motor. Or things like that, because you know, there's other aspects to your development that are equally, if not so more important, that we're not really looking at.
So it looks like we only have 2 minutes. So does anybody else have any burning things to say in 20 to 30 seconds?
Looks like they're shutting us down before they said it was going till 10:45, but I don't know, maybe that's a good thing.
I could say one other thing. I think as researchers, we always have to think about translation and how implementation science needs to grow at UVA overall, because waiting another 20 plus years to get it into practice is not a good standard.
Thanks, Lisa.
You know, I'll throw out one comment that John Lukens actually brought up in one of the other sessions, saying like, you know, I didn't, quote unquote, I didn't hear the next, you know, big idea that's going to be 10 years down the road. And I don't know if this is the purpose of the grand challenge. I think it's not to identify a singular idea. It's about how do we leverage the strengths that we currently have. So imagine machine learning applied to our field with common data elements that we already have. I think those are things that we can leverage currently and foster to rise together, or neuroimaging, which has been said routinely here, that has been, you know, somewhat siloed, and vice versa. So again, I think this is also a way for us to centralize our efforts to then rise up together.
Thanks, Jake.